Climate change. It's here. It's happening right now, and you hear about it everywhere. Natural disasters, heat waves, and record temperatures. But what exactly causes this? What is causing this seemingly unsolvable problem? There are multiple factors at play, and some of the statistics might surprise you. But first, we have to define climate change. Climate change is a long-term change in the weather patterns of a given area. For example, the average increase in temperatures over the last few decades or centuries. In 2024, the average temperature of the planet was 1.47 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial averages, and the Paris Agreement was set to not let emissions go past 1.5 degrees above those. With that out of the way, let's go to the Earth's atmosphere. The atmosphere is composed of 78.08% nitrogen, 20.95% oxygen, and 0.93% argon. But if you did the math, it doesn't add up entirely to 100%. It adds up to 99.96%, but it's that last 0.04% that really matters. These are the greenhouse gases: ozone, methane, CFCs, water vapor, and the one you've heard about most, carbon dioxide. Even though their volume compared to oxygen or nitrogen is very small, they have a major effect. Here's how. The sun creates and emits a lot of energy. Some of that energy reaches Earth, where it is absorbed into the atmosphere and converted to heat, which gives life to everything we know right now. But some of it is also reflected back into space, a phenomenon called albedo, which is caused by Antarctic and Arctic ice sheets. This prevents Earth from getting too warm. This process is totally normal and has happened for millions of years. The problem is that humans are pumping a lot more greenhouse gases into our atmosphere. You can think of it as blankets on your bed. If you have too little, you're cold, and if you have too many, you're roasting. Now you must be thinking, great, we know why the planet is warming up, but where do all the greenhouse gases come from? Well, according to the World Economic Institute, there are 5 different sectors that emit the most of our carbon. Let's look at them from least to most important. First, let's look at land use changes and forestry. Emissions are released when organic matter decomposes and releases some into the atmosphere and the soil. For example, when organic matter decomposes in anaerobic conditions, which means that there is low oxygen, it releases methane. Another factor is when forests are cut or destroyed. Trees consume carbon dioxide and other minerals in the ground and sequestrate it from the atmosphere. When trees are cut down or burned, this releases that carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere, and there are even fewer trees left to convert it into wood. This economic sector contributes about 2.7% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. The next economic sector is waste. These are landfills that release methane for the same reason as anaerobically decomposing organic matter. After years of accumulating garbage and waste into large heaps, they start to compact, depriving them of oxygen. This leads to anaerobic bacteria decomposing them, releasing methane gases into the air. This sector accounts for 3.4% of global emissions. The third contributing economic sector is industrial processes. Most of the emissions from this sector come from cement and petrochemical plants. Cement plants create greenhouse gases for 2 main reasons. First, petrol is used widely to create the energy necessary to produce cement. Secondly, limestone is heated to create clinker, a product used in cement. But heating limestone creates carbon dioxide through a reaction called calcination, when an oxide is rapidly produced with intense heat. Chemical plants release greenhouse gases due to their many chemical reactions which are necessary to transform all our raw materials into the products that we use every day. In total, this economic sector accounts for 6.5% of all emissions. The fourth economic sector is agriculture. There are various different ways in which agriculture produces greenhouse gases. Ruminants, like cows, have 4 stomachs. The rumen is the part of the stomach where partially digested food is directed to be fermented, which releases methane. One single cow produces anywhere from 70 to 120 kilos of methane a year. But in the world, there are 1.6 billion cows, so that means that in total, cows produce about 0.15 gigatons of methane a year. This has the equivalent impact of 4 to 5 gigatons of CO2. Another source of these gases in agriculture is fertilizer use. In total, this sector accounts for 11.7% of all the emissions. Before we head on to our last economic sector, please don't forget to subscribe so you can get more videos about science and nature in general. The final sector is energy. Since it is such a big one, we're going to divide it into several different subsectors. The first and largest subsector is electricity and heat. Most of the world's electricity is produced by burning fossil fuels. These are coal plants, natural gas power plants, and petroleum plants. But unfortunately, these processes are very polluting. For example, anthracite, a type of coal, releases 2.6 tons of carbon dioxide for every ton of anthracite. You might be asking yourself, how is this even possible? It's actually deceivingly simple. Since carbon dioxide is by definition containing 2 atoms of oxygen, When you burn anthracite, it's going to go and bind with all the oxygen atoms in the air, creating more carbon dioxide than was previously contained in the actual weight of the anthracite. This subsector alone creates 29.7% of all greenhouse gas emissions. The second subsector is transportation. We use fossil fuels all the time to power our cars, planes, buses, etc. Cars are especially polluting because of their space inefficiency. One bus pollutes way more than one car, but since it takes a lot more cars to create the same amount of transport as one bus, they end up polluting more. In the European Union, cars emit 60% of transport-related greenhouse gases in the continent. This situation is worse in North America as a much larger slice of the population uses cars. The transportation subsector accounts for 13.7% of all emissions. The third subsector is manufacturing and construction. A big contributing factor is that these large manufacturing plants use a lot of fossil fuels to create energy and heat. For example, steel manufacturing plants use coal to melt iron and other metals in their production. This subsector accounts for 12.7% of all emissions. And so in grand total, the energy sector accounts for 75.7% of all greenhouse gas emissions. And there you have it for all the emissions of greenhouse gases on Earth. Some sectors contribute a lot more than others. For example, electricity production as well as transportation account for 43.4% of all emissions. Modifying the use of these industries and reducing their pollution is crucial to addressing climate change. Climate change is destroying ecosystems everywhere and altering climate worldwide. We're already seeing a lot of the impacts, such as more megastorms, floods, drought in regions that they were never seen before. Entire animal species will go extinct as they have in the past. The storms will only get more intense as well as the droughts, and it's all going to happen very soon if we don't fix this and address it very quickly. The good news is that we can fix it. Stay tuned for the next video where we show how.